Welcome to Intuitive Real Talk, the podcast where I'm going to cut through all the BS. I'm going to light a fire under your spiritual ass, and I'm going to remind you your intuition isn't weird. It is your superpower. Hi, I'm Stephanie, a psychic medium, intuitive coach, animal communicator, paranormal expert. Yep, all the things intuitive. I'm also a professional truth dropper. So, what are we going to do here? We're going to dive into it all. Shadow work, spirit talk, intuitive gifts, and yep, even aliens, like a spiritual dumpster dive, but with purpose. There's going to be no gatekeeping, no fluff, no performative love and light bullshit, just raw, unfiltered conversations for people who know they came here to shake shit up. Let's get into it. Hi there. Well, this episode's going to be a little different than what I normally do. In my podcast, I typically do like about 10 to 15 minute bite size. These are things that you can do for an intuitive standpoint. But today I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story about something that's happened to me as an intuitive person and why it's important as an intuitive person to really connect in and do that shadow healing. So in 2018, I had a back surgery, L4, L5 fusion. And when I had this surgery, I went in with low back pain, of course, as well as right leg pain. I was in surgery for 2 days. So the first day they went through my stomach. The second day they went through my back. And it was just because of the type of injury that I had that it would stabilize it easier for them. And so I was in the hospital for 5 days. When I woke up the first day from my surgery, I, of course, was highly medicated because they wanted to keep the pain under control so that this way, when they went in the second day, I wouldn't be struggling as much. And so when I opened up my eyes, all of a sudden, I saw this spirit rush at me. And when she rushed at me, it took me by surprise because, again, I was so medicated and everything seemed kind of off to me that I remember screaming and shutting down. And I screamed so loud, I scared the nurse. And then my husband was kind of like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw a dead person." And of course, the nurse thought I was joking. And my husband just kind of like, poo-pooed it down, right? So anyway, when that happened, I end up blocking my gifts for a good year and a half. I had scared myself so much by the way she came at me because if you've ever seen the movie The Ring, where that woman comes out of the hole and her black hair is right down in front of her face. That's kind of what this spirit looked like to me. And every time she would visit me after that for about a week or so, I kept getting more scared because, again, I'm highly medicated. And so when I finally started to get out of the medication, my leg pain then changed to my left side, and I had severe nerve damage. And I knew that it was whatever they had put in for metal was causing my leg nerve issue. But the doctor kept saying, "It's going to be fine. It'll work itself out. Just give it some time." Well, it didn't 7 years later. And so anyway, when I was laying in bed, healing from my back surgery, which, let me tell you, it took me a year and a half to walk without a limp. It took me so long to heal. And right after I healed from that, I end up having a full hysterectomy. Now, intuitives that are strong in their empath abilities, or if you're an empath mirror, you are a people pleaser, right? And because you're a natural healer, which I am all of these things, I would feel other people's pain and I would try to take it on so that they wouldn't have to suffer. And sometimes I knew I was doing it. Sometimes I didn't know I was doing it. So anyway, that compounded in my bodies, right? So I've got back issues, I've got hip issues, I've got now female issues. I've got all these things that are going on because, one, I wasn't doing the shadow work. And to be honest, I only knew I was intuitive as shit. But because I was not understanding of the shadow work that's involved, I was holding off on that. So everything just kind of continued to compound. It took way longer to heal than it should have. So I go from having back surgery, then I go to having a hysterectomy, then I need a hip scope, and then all of a sudden I need a disc replaced in my neck. So this tells you all the things that an empath intuitive will take on from other people, as well as their ancestral lineage, generational trauma, their personal trauma, you name it. And so once I became very much aware of, I wanted to give readings full time, like this is my life purpose. This feels good. It lights me up. And I was doing the scary thing of leaving the corporate world and diving into this. All of a sudden, I started unfolding all these things in my readings about shadow work and healing, and all these things were coming up from their ancestors and their loved ones. And I was like, well, shit, I need to start doing this for myself, right? Because I come from a very strong line of intuitives. And so when I started to really delve in and doing the shadow work, I started to notice all the things that was holding me back. But I digress. Let me go back to my surgery. So I shut it down. And let me tell you, I am extremely intuitive. And so during that year and a half that I shut down, I literally felt dead inside. Because before, I could sense you walking in that room before you were even close to that door. I could tell what your child's gender would be. I could see things. I heard things. I talked to spirits. I did all of the things. And when you all of a sudden shut it down and you're in this 3D world and you're not accessing your gifts, what happens is you get this anxiety that is just horrific. And you're almost like, this feels like it's my anxiety, but it might be someone else's anxiety. But then you have anxiety because you can no longer sense anything. And so you feel very much like you're picking up everyone else's crap and you're making it yours, but you don't realize you're doing it at the time. And so it's very restrictive. And I think I just got to that point where I was like, F this, I'm sick of not being able to read people, to do the things I'm meant to do. I'm sick of living in this world of anxiety. But I also know that that happened for a reason to benefit me, because now when I'm assisting people or guiding people or giving messages, I can say, ooh, I know what that energy is that you're giving off. You're not accessing your gifts. Did you know you have these gifts? Did you know this anxiety isn't yours? Did you know this anxiety is because you're not delving in? And so when I started to really like bring back my gifts, it came back in like a hurricane, right? So I was like, woof. As soon as I allowed myself to not be scared of spirit, what happened is everything started to elevate. Now, you have to also remember, I worked in law enforcement from 1998 to 2013. And then from 2013 to 2023, I worked in an owned company where they assisted people with mental and physical disabilities. So it was always like a more, I wouldn't say black and white, but it was a very much limited. You have to be very controlling. You have to be very not using your gifts the way you're supposed to. It's very limiting. I don't know how else to say that nicely, because I do value the experiences that I received and the tools that I received. But I also value myself much more now because I'm not limiting myself. But I did have to do that human experiences, right? So that I would get those certain tools, so that I could read those certain people, so that I could deal with the skeptics, so that I would understand what a skeptic felt like, because I was a skeptic for the longest time. Because if you weren't as good as me or better, I was like, nope, you're false, not realizing all the little steps that people need to take, because then I had to redo those steps. Now, I was born awake. Like, I never shut down except for my back surgery. And so I never knew what it was like to not have your gifts, and thought it was odd when people would act a certain way or not do a certain thing, or that they weren't open to certain things. Like, it was like, why are you so limiting? You know what I mean? And so when I shut down my gifts, what happened is I got to live in their world. And I have to say, for me, it was hell, because I already knew what the greener grass was like. And so when I decided to reopen it, everything started to flow. And by flow, I mean, I did that shadow work. When things started to come up, I actually would think, why am I being so triggered? Is this me? Is it them? Is it generational? Is it something that I need to work on, that I need to release, or that I'm carrying for someone else? And so now in 2025, my L3, it's bone on bone. And so I had to have that fused. I just had that on November 13th. And I told myself, it will only take 2 weeks. You will be great. You'll be moving, walking. You won't be laying in bed, because I was bedbound for, about 6, 9 months, somewhere around there. It was a really long time. And so this time I was like, 2 weeks. I'm giving myself 2 weeks, because I already know that I'm not where I was mentally, physically, and spiritually as I was back then, right? Because I was still kind of denying my gifts back then. Even though I was trying not to, I was still denying my gifts. And so now I'm actively giving readings, right? And I'm giving guidance, and I'm teaching, and I'm coaching. And so I am delved into this world because this is natural. This is who I am. And not everyone is ready for that journey. And there's absolutely no judgment when it comes to that. We all come into this journey for this lifetime to have certain experiences. Okay, so back to now, I just had surgery less than 2 weeks ago. And now I have the left pain on my leg, because that's where all the nerve damage is. My back keeps going out. I've been dealing with this for over a year, and I kept holding off because, to be honest, it was traumatic for me for the 2018 surgery. And I kept thinking, gosh, what if I'm doing all this intention, but back in my mind, it was still that, well, gosh, what if I still have to deal with the same thing? And so these are real world human problems of the 3D that are just things that I am still working on, shadow work, right? Because even strong intuitives, we always are having something happen where it could be like, I think I'm healed on here, but they'll give you a different experience so that you keep working on healing it in a different way. So I go in now with my left leg hurting. And beforehand, the surgeon said, you're going to be laying, because this is only a 1-day surgery for this one. It wasn't a 2-day. And they said, you'll be laying on your stomach, and your thighs may hurt, because I've been told that almost everyone that has this surgery, they wake up with leg pain on their thighs. And I'm like, well, how much worse can it be? Like, dude, I've been dealing with this for over a year, right? I've put it off and put it off. And he goes, no, I can tell you it's going to be painful. And I said, okay, I got it. And in my brain, I'm like, whatever, right? I know best. And I lay on my stomach for 6 hours. It was a 6-hour surgery. And they said it took about 2 hours for me to wake up. It took longer to wake up than it should have, is what they kept saying. And when I woke up, I was in the most intense pain I have ever had. And I've given birth twice, but I have to say, I'm one of those individuals, when I go into pain, and I know that this is a generational, ancestral, past life thing for me, is when I have severe pain, I literally lock down. Like, I think my kids walked out of me, to be honest. I don't remember pushing. I don't do anything. And my labors were never longer than like 15, 20 minutes. Like, I just shut down, and they did everything for me. So anyway, I wake up with this leg pain, and it feels like someone is literally sawing my legs off. Like, it was the most intense pain that I wake up screaming. And I am screaming that my legs hurt. And because the pain is so ungodly intense, what happens is I just stop breathing. I'm like, nope, I can't handle this. And I have to say, when I stopped breathing, instantly the pain went away, and instantly I was at peace, because I knew I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And so it was like I was going away from them, and it was like I was zooming out, and I would hear them start to scream and yell and do all the things. They're not screaming. They're very professional. It just sounds like it's screaming, in my head. Like, they're like, Stephanie, 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 Stephanie. And I'm just going away. Boom, I'm out, right? I'm blacked out. And I wake up to, I can feel pressure on my sternum, but I don't feel the sternum rub. I feel the oxygen mask on my face. And they take it off. I'm breathing again. Boom, I start screaming. I'm in pain. And they were like, we can't give you medication because now your breathing is erratic, and we don't want to give you pain meds because that can make it even worse. And I do this like 9, 10 times. I keep passing out over and over. I stopped breathing. And every time I did, it just felt natural. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel pain. I felt peace. Like, ooh, I'm going away. I will not have to deal with this pain. This is lovely. I'm letting it go. It's gone. I have nothing. So all of you that have ever wondered if when someone stops breathing, if they're scared, if they're gasping, if they're doing the death rattle, I have to tell you, once they stop breathing, they have peace. It's the most peace that you can. It's almost like you're just like floating away. You're just like, okay, I'm not in this shell anymore. And so finally they speak to the surgeon. They're like, yep, she's going to have pain. And I can't stop screaming and I keep doing this. They speak to the second doctor and they were like, on demand, give her whatever she needs because we can't have her passing out from pain. We just got to give it to her. So it pretty much takes all night to get the pain under control, but it's manageable at this point, right? Where I'm not passing out as much. But every time I would fall asleep now, because they kept me on oxygen, my blood pressure would continuously drop. Like I think it was between 79 to 92 over like 50 or something like that. That's extremely low. Like I should be crashing low. And from what they told me, like I'm not a medical expert, so I can only tell you what I kind of gleaned from them. But I remember just waking up to these alarms constantly because I would stop breathing or my breath would be like only 4 within like a minute or something. So then the alarms are going off. And it was because I was trying to regulate this pain, right? So I'm in the hospital for technically 3 days, 2 nights. And by the 3rd day, I feel great. But I have to say, it was such an extreme difference because the first time I was so drugged for 5 days, even when I went home, I was drugged, that I really didn't notice anything for about 2 weeks, except for that my leg hurt. And this time when I woke up with both legs hurting, it was so intense. But what it did was when I woke up between passing out and screaming in pain, I could not open my eyes. I know that sounds weird, but remember in 2018, I opened my eyes and got scared by spirit because you're so open when you're on medication. When you're really strongly gifted, what'll happen is you have no choice now. You've got no protection, no nothing, no discernment. And so it was like my eyes were glued shut. And so I started reading the nurses that were in the room with me. And I could not open my eyes. Like it was like my human side wanted to open my eyes, but my higher self was like, F no, you're keeping those eyes closed, but you're going to read people, because I kept remember saying there's too many spirits. There's too many spirits. It was like my higher self was saying there's too many spirits, but my human self was saying, you're in pain. You're in pain. This is not cool. And so then when I allowed myself to just start reading them, because I kept saying there's too many spirits and they're trying to talk to me, and I kept saying I talk to dead people and they would kind of laugh, thinking like, oh God, she's so drugged and she's hallucinating, right? That's probably what they're thinking because I'm in pain. And so I just remember this one nurse saying to me, Stephanie, what is it that you do? And now I'm irritated. And I said, I speak to dead people. That poor lady, she was so sweet. But I'm in pain, right? So we're going to give myself a little bit of grace there. And she goes, well, do you have a website or something? And I tell her my website, intuitivestephanie.com. And she looks it up and she's like, oh my God, this lady does speak to dead people. And so I start reading her. And then I start reading people that I notice that, because I'm only focused on her energy. Like I can't, like if I was awake and conscious and just like doing everything without my pain, I would be able to tell you there's more than one energy in that room, right? But I wouldn't know it until she would tell me that there's someone else in there. Boom, I'd start reading that person. And so I would read them, and it allowed me to heal that trauma from 2018. Gosh, I want to tear up just talking about that. So it was such a gift to be given the chance to go and have such a major experience happen again, so that I would know that this time everything is flowing, that truly this is your purpose. And so I just was like in awe of my gifts. And so I have taken the last week and a half and really just relaxed. I've only given myself one reading. I haven't read anyone else because I wanted to just really delve into my human body and do that healing, because I already knew my higher self had my back, right? My human self allowed my higher self to step in this time and to do that full on healing. And so thank you for listening to my mini journey. And if you have any questions, if you have anything that's happened to you that's similar to this, please share your experiences. This is a community of growing to know that everyone will have different experiences, but maybe similar energy. So again, I look forward to connecting with you next time.